So number 5 is investing yourself. Okay.
That's a point. Yeah.
So I know we have kind of differing opinions on what that means.
Yeah.
But let's start with what I believe investing in yourself means. So as someone who's like, if you're in your in your 20s or your early 30s, my argument is that your income, your professional skills, it's going to give you a better return, or improving your professional skills and getting that promotion faster, or optimizing the way you're looking at your future. It's going to be a lot more valuable from a time perspective than trying to invest and get 10-20% this year, right?
Agree.
Case in point is, I came to Malaysia 2.5 years ago. I made 4,000 a month when I first started, right? Fast forward 2 years, I was making 9,000, right? And so that's what, 100 and something percent increase in my monthly income, right? And that income is guaranteed going forward. That income is something like I know, and for me, like I actually know I can make more if I were to, look for the highest paying company, right? But because I took that time, those last 2 years to really like focus on improving my skills to the point where I can command that type of salary, I'm able to then take all this extra money that I'm making now and actually invest it. So that is what I think when I think of investing in yourself. What are your thoughts?
I agree, actually. I agree with the idea of investing in yourself, that you want to become better and more refined with your skills. And yeah, I don't think there's much dispute there, but I think our dispute is how do you do that?
Okay. Yeah.
That is the how, right? And I'm curious, how did you refine your skills? Yeah, your journey.
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of different things. At the beginning, when I had my first job and all that, it was primarily books. So like I actually gave myself, I think I forced myself to spend 5% of my income every single month on buying books, right? And those books were like, and obviously, I was actually required to read them, right? So it's not just like buying books for the sake of buying books. From there, I actually started looking more at, so I guess a few different things were happening at that time. So buying books was my big one. Figuring out where I wanted to go professionally, and then talking to the people who are already there and asking them about the skills that they developed, or that they felt was most important for success in that space, right? And for me, then figuring out how do I actually get to improving those skills faster, right? So a lot of that was like taking people out for coffee, for tea, for lunches or dinners, just to really have a chance to pick their brains. And from there, once I had a clear idea, it's like, okay, these are the skills I know I want to double down on. I figured out who were the people that I knew personally or online who have demonstrated that they are the experts in that space, and then finding a way to learn from them. So that could have been through a podcast. And last year, I binge listened to 2 different podcasts. Each of them had 200 plus episodes. Each podcast was like an hour to 2 hours. Right, so I went through about 800 hours of content.
2 times speed.
Yeah, at 2 times speed. So that obviously cuts down on the actual required amount of time. But that's one way of learning, right? I've gotten to the point where, for most cases, like reading a blog does not help. And what really does help is actually going through a course, right? So I actually did end up paying for, I think it was $1,000 or $2,000 US for a marketing course. And this is way before like I knew anything really about marketing, right? But that gave me the foundation to then create my own little playground, so my own website, testing all of these things, right? So I actually threw money into it, through my time, effort, energy of what I've learned from that course, and I had a chance to actually take like what is just like theory, just theory, and actually having practice with it. So creating a practical place, right? And because of that, like when I got into the role of like, what I'm doing now of advertising, like I already knew a lot of the things that the company was doing. I had a lot of different input. And because of my just drive of like and curiosity of always wanting to learn, like I just naturally got pretty good at it pretty fast, right? So yeah, those were the three main ways for me learning. Number one, buying a bunch of books that I found was valuable for me to learn from either personal skills or professionally. So like, how do you sell? How do you market? What is psychology? To personal of like, what does it mean to be more efficient with your time? How can you be more efficient with your time? How have like your top CEOs in different ways been more efficient with or how have they structured their time because they have a method that works, right? So replicating that. So that's step one. Step two, figuring out what exactly it is from a professional perspective of where I want to be, and then figuring out who's already in that space, talking to them, so buying them, tea, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever it is, to get in front of them for an hour or two to pick their brains and learn what skills that they felt was most important in getting them to where they are today. And then number three after that is developing that skill, right? And for me, developing that skill meant listening to podcasts, and it meant buying courses or learning from people who are already doing it professionally and have the track record of doing it, right? So they've actually built a brand around themselves of being the expert and not just someone who's just like a one-off, like selling you an idea of like, building a $1 million empire through recruiting friends or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was my game. That's kind of my game plan for everything I do when it comes to like learning new skills.
Cool. And I love that. I love that plan. I think I fully agree with the idea of like reading books first and then, picking people's brain or the relevant people and then find whatever free resources you can get out there before even consider buying a course. And this is where I'm coming from, because I think there are a lot of people, tons and tons of people that have spent a lot of money in courses and have gained like limited, or like maybe even nothing, out of the course, right? And this is where I stand, because when we talk about investing in yourself, I agree with the actuality of investing with ourselves. That means like to refine your skills, and over time you will benefit and you raise your income and you raise your influence, you raise your capacity over time. I agree. The biggest qualm I have is how investing in yourself has become like a quote unquote selling strategy from all these kind of internet gurus, right? And that is something that I think it's very predatory and I'm very uncomfortable with people telling me, you got to invest in yourself, buy my course. To me that is very, very unhealthy, and that is something that we definitely shouldn't engage in. So how do I tell people? It's like, if you want to learn how to invest in the stock market, right? Have you read books, right? That's always the first benchmark, right? Have you read some books? If you have read some books, can you share me what are the books that you read, right? And if you have already read those books, and maybe I could share with you some other books to read, right? Then from there, you go and find relevant people and you pick their brains. All these are validation process. So once you validate that you actually want to double down on this, then in actuality, you will find it easier to search for the guru, someone that actually understands the thing, right? Not get oversold by this whole hype and emotion, because there is a emotional structure as to how they sell you a lot of these kind of big ticket prices and big ticket courses, that actually is like very big question mark after you're there, right? So I personally have not went for all these courses because I was too broke during that period of time to go for any courses. But I have a lot of friends who went for these courses and they tell me it's like, I cannot, jialat, it's very bad, right? So, okay, but there are also people that benefit from the course. Let's not be wrong. But I call these people unicorns. That means whether or not there's a course, they could have done it, right? They could have went to read some books, they could have gone and pick some brains, and they would have been able to do it anyway, right? So they are the anomalies. We don't look at anomalies to judge the success of something. We want to look at trends. We want to look at the mass amount of people. So if you go into any programs, without any kind of base understanding of whatever you're trying to do, if let's say you're trying to learn how to invest in property, then go and read some property books, right? Then look about some property. You want to learn digital marketing, you want to learn everything, go and read some books, listen to whatever free content out there to validate yourself, to be certain that actually you want to do it, right? Before you go and buy a course and spend that kind of money to further invest in yourself, because there is a difference between I want to make that kind of money and I actually want to do the work, right? So many people just want to make that kind of money, but they don't want to do the work, right? So go and validate that do you actually want to do that work, and if you really want to do it, then by then you will find it very easy to find the right people, the people that actually know what they're doing. Yeah, that's kind of
I think what you were saying there of do you actually want to do the work? I think that's probably the most important part of this whole thing, right? Like, anyway, so I forgot what my train of thought there was, but going back to the whole buying a course, I do think courses have a place. I think the way I look at courses is, in general now, like I would much rather buy a course from someone that has been vetted by someone I trust than I would rather spend the time, effort, energy trying to figure out what I don't know.
Fair.
Right? Because with a course, it's, and to be fair, okay, let's make this very clear. When you are going through a course, everything that you're going to teach you is free somewhere online, right? It could be on a blog, it could be on YouTube. It's there, right? The issue is you don't know what it is that you don't know, and you don't know in what order you should be learning these things, right? Or give yourself some sort of like mental structure of how to think about whatever it is you're trying to think about, right? And so that's why I think like courses are actually like they play a very, very valuable role in the sense of like saving you time, energy, effort. The issue, but I do agree that the biggest issue is, are you buying from, or is this person who's like selling you that course or where you're buying it from, are they actually reputable? Do they actually know what they're doing? Do they actually have a track record? And do they actually have your best interest at heart? Or are they just trying to make a quick buck out of you?
Yeah, agree.
So that's kind of, so that's where I guess I draw my line. And personally, like that's one of the things I'm also looking at is like, because I do run a platform here, like I do want to find the courses that I do believe really help people, and then make sure that, direct people to those courses, to the, the people I've already vetted in a certain, or, that has been vetted in a certain way, so that it's less likely that someone will get cheated somewhere else.
Yeah,
right?
I can agree with that. I can agree with that, and I think when we bring in another dimension of resources, I think that is very important also. You will reach a level where you have all these resources and you value your time a lot more, right? And you don't want to go through all this sussing around, trying to figure it out and reading the books, and it takes a lot of time, all these different elements. I get that, right? But I think for a lot of people, they're just starting out and just trying to figure things out. Resources are pretty limited, right? So we wanna bootstrap a little bit, right? So find the good books and always buy old books, right? Books that have been around for a long time, 10, 20, 30 years. I think that those are better books than the new ones. Not that the new ones are invalid, just that the old ones have stood the test of time, right? Yeah. So I think that is where I stand. I do agree that there's a place for courses. I also agree that there are a lot of rubbish courses, and we need to direct people to the more validated ones, those that are good, and you get more value out of what you pay. I think those are cool, but we also got to bring another dimension of resources, right? So 5 years ago, I would bootstrap everything, but today, it's a different story. I will try to because I already have basic understanding of a lot of things. When I want to pivot to another industry, there are also some things that I look out for. You're not like a empty, you don't know everything, right? So when you're by the time you're there, then you have more resources to play with, then maybe then it will be a slightly different approach, right? Which so I think that's what I want to add.
Yeah. Well, I guess since we're kind of talking about this right now, and ultimately, I guess after this, I don't think we don't have a step 6 at this point. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think you need to have some savings. That's for sure.
Okay. Savings.
Yes.
actually, let's talk about savings right after this. I'm just going to write that down here. So when it comes to investing yourself, let's actually talk about some of the places that we've learned from, right? Because I think people here, some people or lots of people here are interested in investing or interested in making more money or living a better life, right? So what are some of the best ways or best channels, people, podcasts, whatever it is that you've learned from over the past years that you feel like, people should be more aware, like more people should be aware of this?
Okay, you give me a moment. I'll take some books off my shelves.
Perfect. And for those who are watching, let us know, like, what free resources or what are you trying to learn or would you be interested in learning so that we can suggest free resources that we are aware of that we might have personally learned from, now or in the past. So while we do that, I think we have a few books here.
Yeah. So I think many people read a lot of books, and I've read some books. I'm not a super big reader, but I do read a good amount. And some of these books have framed my basic understanding of finances and how I invest and how I manage my money, right? So I'm going to share with you some of them. And the first one is definitely this guy, right? The Intelligent Investor, Benjamin Graham. I don't need to sell his book. Everyone is selling his book. He's said to be.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people don't know who that is.
Okay.
Please preface this.
Okay, so Graham is Buffett's teacher. Essentially, that is what people assume him to be. Of course, he's actually a researcher, and he's done a lot of research in terms of how the financial markets move, in terms of the emotional structure of how people do things, and he's an economist, finance, researcher kind of guy, right? So he actually championed the idea of value investing. That is kind of how everything started, and Buffett kind of rode on it. Okay, of course, there are a lot of things that Buffett does, but Graham is a lot more focused on value investing because that is his research paper essentially, right? So I think it was in the 1970s that I cannot remember when. No, way
1930s.
Way earlier. I just saw, 1920, 1930s. That's when he started, doing his research, and I think every 10 years he publishes a new edition. So he died in 1970. So this is like the last edition, of what he wrote. Right. So I think you should read it. There are a lot of content inside. It's just the only issue I have with this book is that the English is super old. It's like the old English. So you may struggle in terms of trying to understand what he's saying. But I don't think it's that difficult because there are a lot of resources that actually break down what he says. Right. So if you don't understand some things, take him as your step-by-step practice in value investing, and then go and do all your supplementary research on YouTube or Google search. It's not difficult to find in terms of the words, what he's saying. A little bit of here and there you should be able to add on. So I think this is a good book when you talk about value investing. I'm not fully a value investor, but I do subscribe to some of the basics that he does. Okay, so this is a good book if you want to learn investing. I bought it from MPH 89 RM. So it's not too expensive. They don't sell it at Book Access. If not, I buy everything from Book Access. So yes, 90 RM, bros. Go and learn 90 RM and maybe 10 cups of coffee. Every weekend you read one chapter, you finish it. Okay, cool. This is the next book that I read. I actually came across this because it was like sitting around Book Access. It's called A Pragmatic Capitalism. So it turns out to be a pretty good book. I actually bought it because it was cheap anyway. So it turns out to be a pretty good book. Pragmatic Capitalism by Cullen Roche, Cullen Roche, right? And he brings into a lot of perspectives, on this guy, right? So how Buffett invests in the market and how Graham does all these things, and this guy brings in another kind of coverage around that. He talks about how there is more than just value as to how Buffett does it. There is like a lot of rigorous acquisition that he does from time to time because he's very opportunistic. So it's not all about just value. He has the kind of cash to do all those kind of stuff, and he sells insurance and make the kind of premium. So I think he puts into perspective a lot of other things that Buffett does, and he also puts into perspectives about how actually your personal income will probably be your best bet. It's rather than just looking at investing. So before I read his book, all I was thinking about was investing. How do I invest better? But after I read the book, I was like, yeah, actually, come to think of it, if I just hold a job, for 3 years, I could like maybe outstrip my investments, in a certain way, right? So I think he did put a decent perspectives into my head. So yeah, read about it. He talks a little bit about macro trends, also economics. So I think that is good. Can take a look. And this is also another book that is very cheap when I bought it, 19 RM. So yeah, I'm quite cheap in that sense. Yes. So it's a book called "What Your Financial Advisor Isn't Telling You" by Liz Davidson. Essentially, this is like a point form kind of guide, right? So all the different elements of finance in terms of like insurance, savings, all the different checklists, different accounts that you should have, some credit scores, but the basis is in the US, so you gotta revisit some of the things locally. But yeah, I think it does provide a good basis for different pointers. So at least when you meet your professional financial advisor, you have some basis to work with, right? You kind of know what they're saying. They will not be drained trying to explain to you everything, and you will not be lost at every moment. So I think it's good to read some of these books before you meet your professional planner. And okay, I do not subscribe to the do-it-yourself kind of mindset. I subscribe to the learn sufficient to find the person to do it for you kind of mindset. Right, so I do think that you should still seek professional help in terms of your financial planners, your associates, your investment managers, all these people. You need to look for them, but you got to learn enough so that you know who works and what works for you and what doesn't. Right, so I think that's kind of where I stand for books.
Yeah, I agree with the whole DIY probably isn't for many people or most people, primarily because like you have your own skill set, right? And what you should be doing is you should be finding people that you can trust who have the similar values as what you're looking for and has the skill set that you need.
Yes.
To essentially join your team, right? Because life is a team, is a team sport pretty much in the sense of, if you need a medical advice, you go to a doctor. If you're looking for like understanding your taxes, you want to go to a tax accountant. If you want to find ways to improve the way you're learning or the skills you're developing, go find someone who has that skill and learn from them, right? Talk to them, figure out how they've done it so that you don't have to reinvent that wheel every single time, right? Anyway, so on my end, I'm not going to talk about books today, but podcasts that I remember that have played a big role in my life. So first of all, Invested. This is for value investing. Love the whole podcast. I've listened to it from beginning to end. I think it's at episode 250 something. So I have gone through it all. And I spent a good 3 months last year essentially blitzing through all of it. And then from there, taking a lot of the miscellaneous action steps that they kind of talk throughout their podcast and actually executing on that. So definitely would highly, highly suggested. For real estate, I would listen to Bigger Pockets. So this was 5-6 years ago when I first started learning real estate. And yeah, once again, I don't know how many episodes I've listened to, but they cover a lot of different people they interview a lot of different people who are real estate investors in different ways, from your typical buy and hold to people who buy something, fix it and flip it, to those who might buy the rights to it and then sell it to someone else. So it really opened my eyes to what was possible, and more importantly, gave me the confidence of these are all the different things I should be aware of when I'm buying real estate. Hint, the most important thing you can do is to make sure you get the right tenant in, otherwise you're fucked. Yeah, so I think those are the two investment related podcasts that I've listened to that have, that I actually have learned from and actually practice a lot of what they've taught me. So the real estate thing, I have been able to actually buy and rent and eventually sell my property for a good profit. And it was really all thanks to these people, right? So just listening to this podcast, and then of course picking up a few books here and there, which gave me the foundations of what I needed to know to go through that first one. And I gave me the confidence of actually, if I want to continue down real estate, like I know I have the ability to do so, and I know who I will want to bring on, either from an investment perspective or from a mentor perspective, or from a like I will pay you to teach me perspective, right? Yeah.
That's cool.
So I was those are two there.
That's cool. Yeah, you want to know what podcast I listen to?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll add on to some of the podcasts. So I don't actually listen to that kind of podcast. Like, you learn everything from a podcast. I think reading a book is more structured, because when books are published, they have to go through a whole process of proofreading, and before they are published, there's a lot of validation, right? So there's a certain structure when there's written content in that sense. But when I listen to podcasts, a lot of times I want exposure. I want to be able to hear different views and understand different viewpoints. But to me, if I have no kind of basic thoughts already in my head, I would struggle trying to understand a podcast, right? So some of the podcasts that I listen to, I think the first podcast that I listened to sounds super boring, but it's like BBC World Service.
World Service?
Yeah. Global News Podcast, right? That's a BBC Global News Podcast. And why do I listen to them? Because I think the UK news, it's a little more, much less sensationalized. So it's not like Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of hype and just too much. It's like they can take like 3 liners of content and make it into like a 10-minute show. It's like, what the, it's crazy. So every morning I listen to BBC, 10 minutes. I kind of understand what are the important things that are happening around the world, and that's where I do it. So it helps me in terms of global exposure. Next thing I listen to, of course, is Motley Fool Money, right? So the fools are like huge in the investing space, right? In terms of like retail investors and value investors. So Motley Fool Money just gives me a lot of thoughts, because I don't always have a lot of people around me talking about investing. I'm the oddball around. So when I listen to like 3 or 4 of them chatting about different companies, it gives me some ideas of who I should go and look out for, what kind of interesting things to do, because it gets a little boring day to day. When I listen to them, I get new ideas, right? So then I will go and research on those companies and decide that if they fit my palette and what I want, all right? 2 other things that are not finance related would be relationships alive, and the science of happiness, right? So these 2 are some of the podcasts that I really like, because it's a very conversational. It talks about different elements of life, how to manage your relationship, the kind of different ways of managing anxiety, managing depression, the emotional aspects of things, right? So to me, this is vital in being a good human, and it's also extremely important in becoming a good investor, right? Becoming a good investor, you got to manage your emotions. You got to understand why you do certain things, why you react certain way, and get to know yourself better. So I think that, those 2 podcasts would be something I recommend. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, so we have it all written out there. So if anyone wants to, go through it again, they can easily do so.
Hey, can I be shameless and talk about my podcast?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, that's it. Just go and listen to my podcast, follow me, and yeah, let's just have fun. Thank you.
There you go.
Yes.
Awesome. So we actually, before we go to the last one here, we actually have a comment here. Invest in yourself, and also finding the right skill that can really impact yourself. Sometimes we just want to learn something new. It's just an additional knowledge without really contributing to yourself or elevating your life.
What are your thoughts? I can agree with that. Actually.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, so our topic, I guess, here today was more like what things you need to have in place before you really look at it, investing in like the market or anything. But I do agree that life is not just all about money. And if anything, life's probably more about growing as an individual, right? And this is probably the best way of growing as an individual, to invest in yourself and things that you love, right? So totally agree with this whole concept here.
Yeah. I agree. It's not all about money, and I think it's really about carving a life we love, and managing finances is just an aspect of it. All right, so yeah, just go and learn what you need to learn and have fun. I think that's good.
Perfect. So
Where there's one comment. Where do we listen to all the podcast listed?
hey, this is CS from More Money Malaysia. We are a platform dedicated to helping Malaysians like you make smart financial decisions. And the way we do that is through providing you with actionable advice, such as the video you just saw, right? But we're not here just to become your intellectual entertainment. We really do want to see you succeed, because we want to see you live that ultimate life that you've always dreamt of, right? And in order for us to do that, what we've decided to do is we want to help make it easier for you by providing different types of rewards throughout the months. So make sure you check out the description below, click on that link and see what type of reward you might be able to qualify for by taking action right now. And if you have any other questions about any of this, feel free to contact us wherever you find us. Take care.